Welcome to Raccoon Tale. I hope you enjoy your time here and find peace in the stories we tell. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. After my parents passed away, I traveled to the capital to seek refuge with my fiancé. However, he had already pledged his life to another. I intended only to take a small compensation and return to my hometown. Unexpectedly, Lord Jiang valued the betrothal contract immensely. He broke 3 rattan whips and even used death as a threat to force his only son, Julian Jang, to marry me. After the wedding, my husband hated me to the bone. Even the daughter I gave birth to suffered every grievance. 3 years later, a plague broke out in the capital. My husband, without hesitation, gave the last portion of medicine to his old flame. I could only watch helplessly as my daughter and I succumbed to the sickness and died. Opening my eyes once more, I found myself standing in front of the great gates of the Jang residence. "Miss, you just said, where did you come from to seek refuge with the master?" I gave a faint, cold smile. I found the wrong place. The sunlight was blinding, the noise of the crowd filled my ears, and everything before my eyes was strangely familiar. The young servant at the gate looked at me with a confused expression. It turned out I had returned to the very first day I set foot in the capital. In my previous life, my family's fortunes had declined, and my parents passed away one after another. On her deathbed, my mother told me that my father had arranged a marriage for me when I was small, and there was a keepsake as proof. "The world is unpredictable," she had said. Who could have guessed that Lord Jang would rise step by step to become a successful official? Our family offended the nobility and declined day by day. After I am gone, go to the capital and seek refuge with the Jang family. Your father once saved their lives. Even if they do not want to accept you, at least they will give you an explanation. It is easier to find shade under a large tree. I had cried until I lost my voice, but I still nodded in agreement. After my mother passed away, I carefully tucked the jade pendant into my bosom, then sold the few remaining family assets to gather enough travel expenses for the capital. Along the way, braving the wind and sleeping in the dew, I tasted every hardship. Just like that, I arrived at the door of the Jang family. The events of the past could no longer be pursued. The moment I knocked open the great gates of the Jang family in that past life, I thought they would not accept me easily. Unexpectedly, Lord Jang valued his word and kept the promise, forcing his only son, Julian, to marry me. Like a dream, I became the young mistress of the Jang family. After the wedding, Julian was cold to me to the extreme. He did not hide his indifference, even moving to the study on the very first day. Seeing that I was not favored, the servants in the manor often gossip. "The young master has such character and appearance, yet he has to marry the daughter of a fallen imperial physician. What a waste," they whispered. "The young mistress has neither a generous dowry nor a maternal family to support her. Naturally, the young master does not like her." Sigh. "It is all because the master is too old-fashioned. A promise made 10 years ago. Why take it so seriously? Isn't it ruining the young master's life?" Hearing those rumors, I was so ashamed I could not lift my head. It was true I was not excellent enough, failing the kindness the Jang family had shown me. But originally, I never thought I would become the young mistress. Now that Julian had such an attitude, it was within my expectations. I could only be more careful, trying to treat him with gentleness and thoughtfulness. How naive I was back then. I thought that as long as I was always good to him, one day I would move him, making him accept me. 1 month after the wedding, seeing that we had not yet consummated the marriage, Madame Jiang told me to bring a late-night snack to the study to visit him. "They say it is easy for a woman to woo a man. Be a little more active, and he will soften sooner or later," she advised. But that night, the moment I opened the door, Julian's expression changed. He sneered, "As expected of a fallen person. Can you not bear the loneliness?" Although my family had declined, we were once the descendants of officials, and I was raised with endless love. Julian's blunt rebukes made me lose all face. From then on, I dared not go near the study again. Madame Jiang despised me for being useless, her words filled with regret. The servants were best at seeing which way the wind blew, and my days in the Jing manor became increasingly difficult to endure. It was not until more than 3 months after the wedding that Julian and I consummated our marriage. That night he was drunk, his breathing uneven, his steps staggering. I heard him dazedly calling, "Luna Song, Luna." Then he immediately kissed me passionately, undressing me. I thought it would be a night of enchanting romance. But waking up the next morning, Julian looked at the chaotic red bloodstains on the bed, his face turning pale green. Without saying a word, he dressed and left. After that time, I finally understood. It turned out he did not just dislike me, he hated me. But why did he have such deep hatred for me? I thought about it but could not understand. After that night, I was pregnant for 10 months and gave birth to our daughter, naming her Nina. Nina was fair, beautiful, obedient, and sensible. I originally thought Nina's birth would soothe the relationship between Julian and me. It is a pity I forgot the principle that if you love someone, you accept everything about them, including their child. If he does not love the mother, he will not love the child. Julian did not like me, so naturally, he did not like her. He never smiled at Nina, nor did he care about her. Even if Nina obediently massaged his shoulders or blew on his hands, he coldly rejected her. Every time I saw my daughter's lost, pitiful eyes, I regretted it endlessly. Just because of one wrong thought of mine, I harmed her whole life. A few years later, Lord Jiang was promoted one rank, and the family held a grand banquet to treat guests. I do not know why, but in the courtyard, Nina argued with a little boy and was slapped by him until her cheek turned red. I was about to step forward to protect my child when I saw Julian storming over in anger, violently pushing Nina away. Nina fell to the ground. A gentle, beautiful woman softly comforted the boy who had bullied Nina. In front of the crowd of guests, Julian stood solicitously behind the mother and son, his voice deep as he scolded Nina. "Ignorant child. Why do you have no manners? It is all because your mother did not teach you well." Nina was so aggrieved her whole body trembled. I could only hug her tightly, whispering comfort. After the banquet ended, I accidentally overheard several ladies talking. "After so many years, it seems young Master Jang still hasn't forgotten Luna," one whispered. "Shh, outsiders don't know about this," another replied. Back then, the Jiang and Song families had verbally agreed, who knew an unexpected obstacle would appear halfway. I heard Lord Jiang, to force the young master to keep his promise, broke 3 rattan whips. Yet the young master would rather die than submit. In the end, it was only by threatening suicide that he agreed to marry the current young mistress Jang. Sigh. If you say young mistress Jang and Luna are both pitiful, then these things are truly fate-teasing people. The ones who suffer most are always the women. In that moment, I felt as if I had fallen into an ice cellar. It turned out my years of misery came from such a cause. I didn't even know who to blame. Blame my father-in-law? No, he valued integrity and kept his promise. Not wanting to betray the friendship with my father, he let his only son marry me. He did not wrong me. So should I hate Julian? Hate that he married me, but was cold as ice, causing me enough torture. But I couldn't, because he originally had a good match. It was I who made it impossible for him to be with the one in his heart for a lifetime. I couldn't blame anyone, nor hate anyone, I could only hate myself. From then on, my heart died. I no longer tried to please anyone, nor did I beg Julian to love me. In this lifetime, my only thought was to raise Nina and find a good home for her. 2 years later, a plague broke out in the capital. This epidemic was extremely contagious. The elderly and young children who caught it were in the most danger. Every day in the city, there were many new corpses dragged out to be burned. Every day, I chanted to Buddha, begging my parents in heaven to protect us, that Nina must remain safe and sound. But unexpectedly, one night, Nina still developed a fever. At that time, the Imperial Medical Bureau had researched a remedy for the plague, but it contained several extremely rare medicinal ingredients that were hard to find, so it could not be used widely. Therefore, these medicines were only distributed in small quantities to certain court officials. The Jiang family originally had 2 doses, one was used for Madame Jiang. After Nina fell ill, I went to find Julian to ask for the remaining dose. Who knew that dose had already been given by him to Luna's son? But Luna's son was not even sick. She only came to ask for the medicine, because she heard drinking it could prevent infection. In that moment, Julian forgot that he still had a daughter. Over the years, I was treated coldly, scolded, and despised, but I never resented him. Yet in this second, for the first time, I wanted to kill someone. My whole body would not stop trembling. My voice broken. "Nina is your own flesh and blood. Did you truly never love her?" Julian frowned tightly, his voice deep. "I did not know Nina would fall ill. What are you making a scene for? What kind of behavior is this? The Imperial Medical Bureau is urgently making new medicine. Wait for the new medicine, and Nina will be saved. Wait for new medicine." But this was an acute disease, from infection to death. At most, it took only 3 days. So what was the use of saying these things to him? Seeing me turn away in distraction, Julian suddenly grabbed my sleeve. "Don't think nonsense," he said. I owed Luna. This time consider it paid off. From now on, we will live properly together. Nina is also my daughter, I will save her. I almost wanted to look up and laugh aloud. Julian, if Nina and Luna's son fell ill at the same time, who would you save? You can deceive others, but you cannot deceive yourself. Julian frowned deeply. You are truly presumptuous. I pushed him away with force, speaking with a cold heart. Lord Jiang, whether your heart is impartial or you are using public office for private gain, you know best yourself. Later, Nina still passed away. She was too frail and could not hold on until the imperial physicians finished preparing the new medicine. I held her small body tight for 3 days and 3 nights without sleep or rest, feeling my own life force gradually fading away. Hang in there, Nina, hang in there. I whispered, squeezing her into my embrace, wanting to use my body heat to warm her. Mother only has you left. Nina, Mother really only has you left. I beg you, please don't close your eyes. Please. I begged the heavens, begged them not to take my child. I could do without everything else. I was willing to return to the countryside to farm and weave, to eat bran and swallow vegetables in the wilderness, only praying for my daughter to live. But my pleas were useless. Even if I wanted to trade my entire lifespan for Nina's life, it still had no effect. Nina became colder and colder. Finally, her frail body was almost as thin and light as paper. Before dying, Nina looked at me and smiled. Mother, in the next life, Nina still wants to be your daughter. Saying that, she never opened her eyes again. I hugged the child, letting out the most miserable scream of this entire life. Heaven and earth are heartless, treating us all like sacrificial offerings. I was a useless mother. I couldn't even protect my own child. In this world, I had nothing left to linger for. Just like that, hugging my child, I used scissors to pierce my own throat. By the time Julian, dusty and exhausted, rushed home with the new medicine, what he saw were only the cold corpses of mother and child. Thinking of those past events, my fingernails dug deep into my palms, my heart aching to the point of near convulsions. Was it that the heavens pitied me, so they gave me a chance to live again? In this life, I do not want my Nina to suffer anymore. I clenched my hands tight, and after a while, I stuffed the jade pendant back into my bosom. I found the wrong place. Saying that, I turned and left with any lingering attachment. Behind me, the Jang family servant scratched his head in confusion. This is clearly the Jang residence. Are there any other Jang families in the capital? How strange. As I walked far away, Julian was on his way back to the manor. He only caught a glimpse of the corner of my silhouette and suddenly stood frozen in place, as if deep in thought. But I did not spare him even a superfluous glance. In this life, let Luna take the position of the Jang family's young mistress. I wish them everlasting love, growing old together. Only when I left the street did I gradually feel my stomach growling with hunger. Now empty-handed and exhausted, I feared the immediate task was to manage some money, gather enough travel expenses, and return to my hometown. Thinking so, I walked into a pawnshop and took out the jade pendant I once regarded as a treasure. Shopkeeper, I want to pawn this jade pendant permanently. How much can you pay? The shopkeeper looked up at me, then picked up the jade pendant to examine it. It has some age, but the jade quality is ordinary. I will pay you 10 taels. Only 10 taels. I wasn't sure if the shopkeeper was lowballing me, but this jade pendant was merely a keepsake from when the Jiang family and my father knew each other in humble times. I estimated it wasn't worth much. I curled my lips in a faint smile. Fine. In this life, I never want to see this thing again. After receiving the money, my heart felt a little more at ease. I just needed to save a bit more, and I could go home. Afterward, through a broker, I went to do odd jobs at a medical clinic opened by a female doctor. Thinking back, my father came from the Imperial Medical Bureau, and I was also proficient in medicine. In my past life, I occasionally massaged Madame Jiang and prescribed medicine for the servants. But Julian had said, "Those things of yours are a lowly trade, they cannot reach the refined society. Let it be. No matter what I do, he looks down on it." Now, I no longer need him to value me. When I return to my hometown, I can also open a small clinic to help the villagers. I do not seek wealth or glory, only enough to eat and wear. Dr. Helen Tan at the clinic was about 50 years old. She had spent her whole life treating illnesses and saving people without marrying. I admired her medical skills greatly. One day, she took me to a wealthy household to treat a patient. Upon arrival, I was shocked to discover it was the home of Luna. Previously, I had heard that Madame Song suffered from headaches. Unexpectedly, it was true. Dr. Helen performed acupuncture for Madame Song and prescribed a few doses of medicine before leading me away. From beginning to end, Luna stayed by her side to serve, clearly very filial. I sighed inwardly. In my past life, after knowing the old story between Julian and Luna, I felt quite guilty towards Luna. But later, when she took away Nina's life, saving medicine, I hated her to the very marrow of my bones. Now, let those grievances stop right at this starting point. Exiting the great gates of the Song residence, Dr. Helen asked me, "Could you tell the condition of Madame Song?" I hesitated and replied, "I see Madame Song's symptoms resemble a sickness of the heart more than a sickness of the body." Dr. Helen nodded. "You have a sharp eye, you hit the mark. People often say a sickness of the heart requires medicine for the heart." Hearing her words filled with hidden meaning, a strange feeling rose in my heart, so I probed. "Lord Song has high status and great power. Miss Song is sensible and filial. What worries could Madame Song have?" Dr. Helen looked at me, shaking her head. "As a mother, naturally, one worries about the marriage of one's children." As soon as these words were spoken, my heart shook. I felt a truth was about to break through the soil and emerge. I took a deep breath before whispering. "I heard people say Miss Song and the only son of Lord Jiang are a couple. Such a good son-in-law. Is the Song family still not satisfied?" Dr. Helen smiled. "Your news is quite well informed too." Saying that, she lowered her voice to speak a sentence full of implication. "Two children having feelings does not mean the families agree. The story inside this is very deep." Dr. Helen's words made me sleep restlessly for 2 straight days. I didn't understand what she meant, but she treated Madame Song year-round. She certainly knew inside details that outsiders did not. I vaguely felt the truth in this matter was definitely related to the tragedy of my past life. I even fearfully thought, if from the beginning the Jang family did not agree to the marriage between Julian and Luna, then what was I? Was I just a convenient excuse for them to break their faith and betray righteousness? This matter made me unable to eat well or sleep peacefully, but I did not want Dr. Helen to notice any clues. After that, I secretly probed her several times, finally clarifying the whole truth bit by bit. It turned out the political stances of Lord Jang and the Grand Tutor Song were not unified. Currently, His Majesty had not yet appointed a crown prince. Lord Jang valued the second prince, who was currently in power, while Grand Tutor Song always secretly supported the third prince. According to my speculation, perhaps when they were young, they were close colleagues in the court, fighting side by side, regarding each other as soulmates. The two families had good relations, and the children developed feelings early on. But now that they had reached the status of important ministers, their thoughts became more complex. So even without me, Lord Jiang would not have agreed to let Julian marry Luna. Knowing this truth, I felt everything was absurd to the extreme. Well done, Jiang family, well done, Julian. They deceived me so miserably. I, this fool, happily walked into the wolf's den, yet I was grateful to the jackals. Julian clearly knew it was not I who separated him and Luna, yet he vented a belly full of rage onto me. He watched me struggle, watched me suffer, watched me carefully trying to please him, please his whole family. In the end, he even caused the death of my daughter. I hate it. I hate the hypocrisy of the Jang family. I hate myself for walking into the trap, and I suddenly thought of something even more terrifying. Since the Jiang family did not want to ally with the Song family, they certainly needed the best excuse. Only I, a betrothal from childhood, could both avoid offending the Song family and help them escape the situation. Perhaps they were already searching for my whereabouts. That day I went to the Jiang manor. Could I have alerted the snake? And the jade pendant, that was also irrefutable proof. If they found the jade pendant, they could very likely follow the clues to find where I was. Thinking of this, I decided to bid farewell to Dr. Helen. At the very least, I had to leave the capital first and then plan further. But just as I was about to open my mouth, a commotion suddenly came from outside. The little maid ran in, her face full of joy. "Sister Sophie, big happy news. Your husband's family has come to find you. That lady looks either wealthy or noble. You are about to enjoy blessings." Hearing that sentence, my whole body shook. The basket in my hand fell to the ground, dried herbs scattering everywhere. A moment later, a crowd of maids and old servants surrounded a noble lady as she entered. The woman leading them was none other than Julian's mother, Madame Jang. She was still as poised and imposing as ever. In my previous life, I proactively knocked on the door, first telling my background to a second-class servant of the Jang family, then waiting anxiously in the gatehouse for a whole hour before being allowed to see Madame Jang. But now I avoided meeting them, yet Madame Jang proactively came to find me. As soon as she saw me, the rims of her eyes turned red. Sophie, you are Sophie, aren't you? I took a half step back, creating distance without revealing anything. Her behavior further confirmed my speculation. It seemed the Jiang family really needed me. Seeing Madame Jiang putting on such a display, Dr. Helen hurriedly asked, "May I ask, Madam, what business do you have with Miss Chen?" Madame Jiang had not yet had time to speak when the old servant beside her began chattering, explaining the whole story. For so many years, the master and Madame have always remembered Miss Sophie. Hearing news that the young lady came to the capital, they immediately inquired everywhere for news of you. The young lady is the future young mistress of our Jang family. I lowered my eyes, speaking softly. Madam, I do not understand what you are saying. I am not called Sophie. I glanced at Dr. Helen and the little maid in the clinic. Fortunately, from beginning to end, I had never mentioned my childhood nickname. The household registration documents I carried only wrote 4 words: eldest daughter of the Chen family. Dr. Helen had always called me Miss Chen. Madame Jiang was stunned. Perhaps she did not expect I would not admit it. Hesitating for a moment, she softened her voice. How can that be? You are Sophie, you look exactly like your mother. I even held you when you were small. Saying that, she lowered her voice again. You already came to the Jiang residence, why didn't you come inside? Was the servant at the gate rude and offended you? I will definitely punish him severely later. Sophie, the Cheng family and Jiang family have a marriage contract. This was decided by your father and my husband. My son, Julian, is currently working in the Ministry of Personnel. He has always been waiting for you. Julian and Luna were clearly a couple. In the capital, any family with a bit of background knew this matter. She was obviously lying with her eyes wide open, just to deceive me, a naive newcomer to the capital. I spoke calmly, without haste. Madam, I am an orphan girl with no one to rely on. If there really were such a good marriage, how could I not accept it? I fear people can look alike. You have mistaken me for someone else. I bit down tight, refusing to admit it. Madame Jiang also had no other way. She exchanged glances with her trusted old servant several times, then held my hand again to explain. Back then, your father and my husband were colleagues and neighbors too. Your mother and I were bosom friends, closer than blood sisters. But no matter how many words they spent, I still smiled and shook my head. Madam, you truly found the wrong person. Thinking back to those years, I walked every step with difficulty in the Jiang family. Madame Jiang never extended a hand to help me. She even told the servants behind my back, that girl from a small, humble family is truly useless, causing me to not even be able to hold a grandson. Unable to rely on me, she thought of taking concubines for Julian. It was a pity that Julian only had Luna in his heart and refused to accept those concubines. All of Madame Jiang's resentment was vented onto me and Nina. In this life, I did not want to be entangled with her anymore. Seeing my firm and calm attitude, Madame Jiang couldn't help but grow suspicious. Finally, she could only leave with a sigh, saying, "Perhaps we were mistaken." They walked away empty-handed. After Madame Jiang left, Dr. Helen Tan looked at me with a probing gaze. I knew she must have noticed something, but fortunately, she did not ask many questions. At dinner, the little maid, Daisy, chewed on her chopsticks and said regretfully, "It's such a shame, Sister Sophie. You were so close to marrying into a noble family." Dr. Helen tapped her lightly on the head. High-status households are not always a good match. Do you understand? Daisy pouted. What does match, or no match, even mean? I smiled and said, what the doctor means is that when social statuses are unequal, how can one live in peace? My previous life was not just not peaceful, its ending could only be described as tragic. Daisy, only half understanding, went back to her food. By nightfall, I had finished packing my belongings and left a letter for Dr. Helen. The Jiang family had found me, and they were unlikely to let it go. To avoid more complications, I planned to set out tomorrow before dawn. I intended to leave the city the moment the gates opened. That night, I slept fitfully. I dreamt of my wedding night, of Julian's ice-cold eyes. Then I dreamt of the sharp, cold scissors at the moment of my death. Finally, I heard my own heart-wrenching scream when Nina passed away. Everything was as vivid as if it had happened yesterday, making it impossible for my heart to find peace. I decided to wake up earlier than planned. Waiting at the city gates was better, at least it would feel more certain. Under the light of the moon and stars, I quietly pushed open the great door of the clinic, only to find a man in a long green robe standing outside. His silhouette, reflected in my eyes, appeared to show a look of unchanging, deep affection. It was ridiculous. With just one look at Julian, I knew he also carried the memories of his past life. We looked directly at each other, leaving only a stifling silence that felt like suffocation. After a long while, Julian lowered his voice and said, "Sophie, you remembered too, didn't you? Is that why you no longer want me?" I let out a cold laugh. "What right do you have to come looking for me? In our past life, Nina and I died so miserably. Was that not enough for you?" Julian took a deep breath, looking panicked and guilt-ridden. "No, it's not what you think. I truly never intended to harm you or Nina." He looked as if he were at the height of remorse, but I fundamentally did not want to hear it. "Stop talking. Everything from before has already explained it all. I don't want to hear your excuses." I clenched my hands, trying to suppress the hatred filling my heart and throat. "Let's be honest with each other. I already know. In the past life, you didn't marry me to keep a promise. It was only because the political stances of the Song and Jiang families were different. Your father simply wouldn't let you marry Luna." I spat out each word with a cold sneer. "I've seen too much of your Jiang family's filthy hypocrisy. From now on, please do not appear before me again. Because just looking at you makes me nauseous." Julian's face turned ash white. He neither admitted nor denied it. He hurriedly stepped forward, looking at me. "In the past life, I was blind and heartless. In truth, you were a rare wife and mother. It was I who did not know how to cherish you. Sophie, at first I was just bitter. I couldn't resist my father, couldn't resist fate, but I don't know when my heart began to belong to you. Yet you only cared for Nina, there was no room for me in your heart anymore." He said guiltily. "That dose of medicine." Luna begged me desperately. I promised to help her one last time, never knowing it would lead to such a catastrophic mistake. "Sophie, I was wrong. Please give me one more chance. For Nina's sake." I almost wanted to laugh at the sky. "You still have the face to mention Nina. When Nina needed a father most, where were you? When Nina was dying of the plague, where were you?" I choked out a sob. "The day my daughter and I went down to the Yellow Springs together, where were you?" I shouted sternly. "Julian, you come here today talking this nonsense. Do you really want to take me for a fool and deceive me one more time?" This is the height of outrageousness. Julian stood stunned. A moment later, a wave of unspeakable sorrow rose in his eyes. He reached out to touch my sleeve, but I pushed him away violently. "Sophie, I never thought Nina wouldn't pull through. I didn't mean it. I don't ask for your forgiveness, only for a chance. Can we start over? I owe you and our daughter. I will definitely make it up to you. Don't you want to see Nina again?" Hearing him mention Nina over and over, I finally couldn't take it anymore. I swung my hand and slapped him hard across the face. With a loud thwack, Julian's face was knocked to the side. "Get out and never mention Nina again. If you have even a shred of humanity left, stop disturbing my life." Julian grabbed my wrist. "Sophie, no man is perfect. Please, give me one more chance. Get out." I don't want to say it a second time. Saying that, I picked up my bundle of clothes and walked outside. But behind me, Julian spoke in a low but determined voice. "Sophie, I will not let you go." I let out a cold laugh and kept walking. Julian moved to block my path, emphasizing again. "I will not let you go." I looked at him coldly. Be what right? I was foolish once in my past life. Do I have to waste this entire life making up for it? A dark, obsessive look appeared on Julian's face. "Don't you understand yet? At this moment the Jang family will not allow you to leave. The shopkeeper at the pawnshop has already recognized you. If you aren't Sophia Chen, why would you have that jade pendant? How would you explain it?" I sneered. "I found it. Is that not allowed?" Julian gritted his teeth. "That jade pendant belongs to my fiancé. If you refuse to admit your identity, you will be branded a thief. You know my father's methods, don't you, Sophie? The Jang family has truly lost all sense of shame." I laughed mockingly at myself. "So you want to use power to bully me? What can a commoner like me do against a monster like the Jang family? Even if I am called a thief, I will accept the branding, the exile, or the imprisonment. You can't lock me up forever. Getting involved with your family means losing a layer of skin even if I don't die, doesn't it?" Julian flinched back half a step, his fingers stiffening in mid-air. "So you hate me this much?" It was a truly hypocritical show. Seeing that his previous threat couldn't scare me, Julian closed his eyes and continued. "If you insist on leaving, Dr. Helen Tan will also be implicated because of you. She treated you so well, can you bear to see her suffer?" I felt as if I had been struck by lightning. I slowly turned around. "On what grounds would you move against Dr. Helen? Who do you think you are? Just because you have a little power, you think you can do whatever you want?" Are you truly not afraid of divine retribution? Julian said hoarsely. Simply because she is someone you care about. Simply because she was kind to you. You have always been virtuous. Sophie, if someone treats you with a bit of respect, you return it sevenfold. Sophie, I know I am despicable, but if it can keep you here, I have no other choice. Before he mentioned Dr. Helen, I was not panicked at all. At worst, it would be mutual destruction. I wouldn't let the Jiang family control me again. But once it involved an innocent person, I could no longer remain calm. Seeing me silent with a dark expression, Julian suddenly stepped forward and hugged me tightly. He lowered his voice, pleading gently, Sophie, please trust me one more time. In the past life, when I saw the bodies of you and Nina, I wished I could have died with you. Please give me a chance to make amends. I used all my strength to push him away. A cold, heartless man like. How could you ever seek death? Just like today. No matter how beautiful your words are, they cannot hide your vileness and cowardice. I suddenly realized something very clearly. Today, no matter what, the Jang family was determined to keep me. Only my appearance could allow Julian to legitimately discard Luna without causing the two families to become enemies. I must say, Lord Jiang's calculations were truly superior. Julian was even better at following in his father's footsteps than a disciple. At this moment, my mind was a tangled mess. What should I do? What could I do? I was just a lone orphan girl. How could I face a giant like the Jang family? Aside from having lived a few extra years in a past life, what advantage did I have? It was a pity my mind was blank. In the past, I was deaf and blind to the world, holding no secrets or leverage to deal with them. For the safety of Dr. Helen Tan, I could only temporarily stabilize Julian first. I took a deep breath, suppressing the urge to fight him to the death, and said coldly, I can fulfill the marriage contract, but I must make an agreement of 3 conditions with you. Julian's eyes lit up with joy. He said excitedly, as long as you agree, I will grant you anything. He grabbed my hand. Sophie, it's wonderful that you've thought it through. Come home with me. From now on, everything will be according to your will. My parents will surely be very happy too. I violently shoved his hand away, my eyes cold as ice. Who said I was going with you? Do you expect me to be like the past life? Moving into the Jiang house in a daze, marrying you quietly just to let everyone mock me? Julian was stunned, then immediately said, What do you want? I will listen to you. I looked at him coldly. In the past, did you know how much humiliation Nina and I suffered from the servants' rumors? He lowered his head. I knew. Of course you knew, but you and your mother never stopped them, I interrupted. Clearly, a daughter-in-law who bows her head and bends her back satisfies your desire for control. Julian looked pained. Sophie. I was tired of watching him act and spoke coldly. I need you to prepare a proper and dignified wedding gift, no less than what the Song family prepared for Luna. There must be a full ceremony with drums and gongs to welcome me. Can you do it? Julian, hearing me mention Luna, thought I was being jealous. On the contrary, he breathed a sigh of relief. All right, rest assured. I will prepare immediately and ensure you enter our doors with full honor. Afterward, he continued to pour out his feelings. It wasn't until the sun was fully up that he reluctantly left. I dragged my heavy legs back into the clinic. Dr. Helen Tan looked at me with shock in her eyes. I thought you had already left. I shook my head. For now, the Jang family would not let me go. In that case, since they wouldn't stop, I could only find my own way to escape. It was a pity that after marrying Julian in the past life, my heart was as cold as ash. I spent every day confined to the inner courtyard caring for my child. I had long since forgotten the shifts in the outside world, but some events were etched deep in my heart. I suddenly remembered that before Nina died, Luna had come to beg for medicine. Because the medicine contained rare ingredients and couldn't be mass-produced, the emperor only granted it to the imperial family and officials of the 3rd rank or higher. At that time, the 3rd prince had lost power and the Song family had declined. Luna's husband seemed to be the 3rd prince's maternal uncle. He was demoted and exiled, dying of illness on the road. Luna suddenly had neither her maternal family's support nor a husband to rely on, which was why she went to find Julian, her old flame. At the same time, Lord Jiang was promoted. It seemed the 2nd prince had gained the upper hand in the struggle for the throne. The failure of the 3rd prince was naturally intertwined with the Jang family. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but sneer. Julian was indeed ruthless enough. For his and his father's career, he had discarded Luna twice. So when he said he owed Luna, he wasn't lying. Once I understood this, I thought further. Not long after Nina was born, the third prince lost power. So, a year from now should be the critical moment in the battle between the third prince and the second prince. Perhaps I could use the chaos to my advantage and escape the Jiang family. But what exactly did the second prince do? I suddenly remembered a time in my past life when I was playing with Nina in the garden. I vaguely heard Julian whispering to someone, "The noble consort, her favor is gone." This time, for sure. After discovering us, Julian's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly chased us away. Not long after that, the third prince quietly lost his status. I cannot let the Jiang family achieve their goals, but I need more information to determine exactly what happened. Not long after, Julian finished preparing the wedding gifts for me. He even invited the most famous matchmaker in the capital to make the formal proposal. The news that the eldest young master of the Jang family wanted to marry an orphan girl with no status immediately spread everywhere, causing a massive stir. Luna couldn't accept it and ran straight to the clinic to confront me. "Where did you crawl out from? Why are you stealing my Julian? Do you know we are a couple? With your lowly status, how dare you dream of marrying into the Jang family?" In the past life, I had quietly waited for my wedding day in the Jang Manor's side courtyard. Back then, she hadn't come to my door, but now she was still so delusional. "Miss Song," I looked straight into her beautiful face and said coldly, "If I didn't exist, do you really think you could marry Julian? Stop deceiving yourself." Luna's eyes filled with tears as she bit her lip. "We love each other. We are soulmates. It's all because a wench like you blocked our path." Saying that, she raised her hand to strike me. How could I let her bully me? But before I could even retaliate, Julian appeared out of nowhere and caught Luna's wrist just in time. "What are you doing?" he said in a low voice. "Miss Song, everything between us has been made clear. Please do not make things difficult for my fiancé." Luna looked at him in disbelief, her tears falling. "Julian, you're being forced by your family, aren't you? I know you have me in your heart. Can't you break the family barriers for me? I can agree to let her be a concubine. We can serve one husband together." Would Lord Jiang agree then? I burst out in a contemptuous laugh. What a lovesick fool. In the past life, I was just like her. Julian looked conflicted, but still gritted his teeth and said, "Miss Song, I am not being forced. I am doing this willingly. It was I who took the initiative to propose to Miss Chen. Please respect yourself and do not come here again." Hearing this, Luna felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She couldn't hold back her tears, covered her face, and ran out. After Luna left, Julian stood dazed for a moment, then suddenly realized I was still there. He asked concernedly, "Sophie, are you all right?" I sneered. "I'm fine. Aren't you going to chase after her? A debt of affection? You'll have to pay it back eventually." Julian understood what I was implying, and his face instantly turned pale. "In this life, I only owe you. I will use my whole life to make it up to you." I twitched the corner of my mouth, offering no opinion. His words had long since lost the power to deceive me. If he truly loved me, he wouldn't have forced me. People like Julian will never understand what true respect is. And so, the Jiang family chose an auspicious day. With drums and gongs blaring, they welcomed me through the door. Under the red candlelight and the bright double happiness symbols, Julian once again lifted my bridal veil. This time there was no cold groom and shy bride like in the past. There was only my heart full of vengeance. Next, Julian wanted to drink the ritual wine with me, but I coldly pushed it away. In the past, we never drank the ritual wine, nor did we consummate the marriage. Now you want to rekindle an old flame. It's not that easy. Julian knew I disliked him. To show his sincerity, he only sighed and slept uncomfortably on the small couch next to the bed for the entire night. The next morning, an old servant came to inspect the bedding and found no signs of virginity on the sheets. Madame Jiang already hated me for not acknowledging her earlier. Seeing that we hadn't consummated the marriage, she openly scolded me. "For a girl like you to step into the Jiang family is a blessing from several lifetimes of virtue. From now on, you must be diligent and hardworking in serving your in-laws and husband. You must not have the slightest disagreement or negligence. Do you understand?" I sneered and turned to Julian as if to say, "Look, this is your mother." Julian's face stiffened. He hurriedly said, "Mother, it's all my fault. I wasn't feeling well last night, so we didn't consummate the marriage. Please do not blame Sophie." He bowed to Madame Jiang. "Sophie has just arrived. Please care for her more, Mother. Treat her as you treat me." Madame Jiang gasped, so angry she almost dropped her teacup. Lord Jiang said nothing. To him, the objective had been achieved. Other trivial matters were just minor details, and those who do great things do not sweat the small stuff. Offending the mother-in-law on the first day of marriage. If it were an ordinary young bride, she would have been terrified. But to me, none of it mattered. Even if I tried to please Madame Jiang, she wouldn't treat me well. So what if I offended her? It wouldn't make my situation any worse. My goal was to protect those around me and then leave the Jang family. I never intended to be a good daughter-in-law. Julian knew I wouldn't forgive him easily, so he went out of his way to prove himself. He treated me very well. To save face for me, he slept on the small couch every day. Because of my humble origin, people gossip. He personally and severely punished the servants who started the rumors. From then on, no one in the Jiang household dared to be disrespectful to me, but I would not acknowledge this kindness. This was what he should have done in our past life. Doing it now was far too late. A few months after our marriage, Luna also got married. She still married her husband from the past life, the third prince's maternal uncle. Julian only went to drink 1 cup of wedding wine. After returning, he whispered to me, "In the past life, Luna sent me a letter asking me to take her away, but I couldn't. Afterward, I got drunk and mistook you for her, so that's how our consummation happened. It truly makes me want to vomit." I took a deep breath. Although I had long since become indifferent to Julian's words and actions, I couldn't stop the feeling of nausea rising in my throat. Julian, still immersed in his own emotions, continued, "But afterward, I sobered up. I knew the person by my side was you, so I hated myself even more. I betrayed Luna, yet I was unconsciously attracted to you. Sophie, I'm opening my heart to you now just to tell you. Luna is in the past. You are the only one I want to hold hands with for a lifetime." I didn't believe even half a word Julian said. Even if it were true, my heart had already turned to stone. Every day after that, I would only briefly pay my respects to Madame Jiang before heading out to study medicine with Dr. Helen Tan. Madame Jiang hated my free-spiritedness and loathed me to the extreme, but for Julian's sake, she had to swallow her anger. Just like that, a year passed in the blink of an eye. During this year, I always kept an eye on the Jiang family's movements, hoping to find evidence of their conspiracy with the second prince to use for myself later. On the other hand, I also began preparing for the plague that would break out in 2 years. Knowing the future, who could remain indifferent to such a catastrophe? Julian had no idea what my goal was. He was just like them from the past life, humble and striving, only hoping to be good to me. Once, I came home during a heavy rainstorm. Julian, disregarding his own health, ran to the clinic to bring me an umbrella. After returning to the manor, he caught a cold, but I did not care for him. I went to the clinic to work as usual. Daisy, the little maid, felt it was unfair for him and said, "Sister Sophie, your husband is so good to you, but you treat him too poorly." I raised an eyebrow. Is that so? The fact that Julian is still alive is a result of my extreme self-restraint. If I didn't have to worry about Dr. Helen and the others, I would have poisoned him long ago. Dr. Helen sighed. "Lord Jiang must have hurt your heart deeply in the past. Otherwise, how could a person like you treat him this way?" As expected, only Master understands me. One day in the manor, after finishing dinner, a servant reported, "Lord Arthur Yang has arrived." My heart skipped a beat. Arthur Yang was also a supporter of the second prince. Recently, he had been frequently visiting the Jiang house to discuss matters. It seemed they were about to take action. So, I took some snacks and quietly walked toward the study door. The people inside were not speaking loudly, but I could still catch a few words. "The noble consort has already agreed. At the birthday banquet, he will find it hard to deny even with 100 mouths." I tried to move closer, but a shout came from inside the room. "Who's outside?" They were indeed very vigilant. I pushed open the door calmly, without a hint of panic. "It's just me," I said softly. "I've specifically brought some tea and cakes for Lord Arthur Yang." Julian, caught between surprise and delight, said, "Thank you for your trouble, my wife." Arthur Yang hurriedly stood up, bowing respectfully. "I wouldn't dare trouble my sister-in-law." I set the snacks down and immediately took my leave. Combining this with what I had overheard in my past life, I now understood the full picture. Noble consort Chen was the emperor's most favored concubine in recent years. She was only 20 years old and had given birth only to a princess, but the emperor was already over 70. It seemed she had long ago chosen a side, becoming an ally of the second prince. Their plan was to frame the third prince for molesting his father's consort right at the emperor's birthday banquet. This move was treacherous, but undeniably lethal. It was a fatal blow, especially since the third and second princes had not yet openly turned against each other. No wonder the third prince collapsed so quickly in my previous life. He hadn't even made up his mind to deal with his elder brother, yet the second prince had already struck with such cruelty. How ruthless, how terrifying, just like Julian once was to Luna and me. For the sake of their careers and status, these men saw no value in kinship or love. When the day of the palace banquet arrived, I accompanied Julian. In my past life, I never had such honor. I had stayed home obediently to care for Nina. In this life, Julian offered me the glory of being his wife on a silver platter, but I regarded it as nothing more than a worn-out shoe to be discarded. In the middle of the banquet, noble consort Chen finally acted. She excused herself to His Majesty, saying she needed to rest for a moment. The emperor looked at her with pity, and even instructed the attendants to serve her sobering tea. I made a point of watching closely. At that moment, the third prince was also missing from his seat. About the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, a commotion suddenly erupted in the back. The noble ladies whispered among themselves, saying someone had offended the consort. Julian sat there, his entire body tense. Hearing the news, he seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, but in the next second, a guard with an unfamiliar face was brought out, bound and under heavy escort for all to see. It's not the third prince. Julian's pupils contracted, his face filled with shock. Afterward, the banquet continued as if nothing had happened. The third prince appeared out of nowhere, dutifully supporting the Empress Dowager. It seemed the second prince's plot had failed. My secret letter to the third prince's confidant had not been in vain. In my past life, his faction wasn't incompetent. They were simply caught off guard. On the way back, people whispered that the captured guard belonged to the second prince's manor. For some reason, he had been stripped of his clothes and thrown into the palace where the consort was resting. The second prince's face was as green as iron. In the previous life, because the scandal involved a prince and a consort, the emperor had suppressed the investigation to save the royal family's face. But now that the culprit was merely a guard, once a trial began, the illicit dealings between him and the consort could no longer be hidden. After returning to the manor, Julian looked at me with a dark, brooding gaze. Sophie, did you have something to do with this? I gave a cold laugh. With what? I don't know what you mean. Julian's chest heaved violently as he let out a low, helpless growl. Stop pretending. Only a few people knew of this plan. It succeeded in our past life. If you hadn't interfered, it couldn't have failed. He grabbed my hand and pressed it against his chest. Why did you do it? Do you still hate me? Throughout this past year, have you still not seen the sincerity of my heart? I looked at his earnest face and felt the intense pounding of his heart, finding it utterly mocking. Once, I had been just as humble, begging for his love and mercy, but he had been as cold as ice. Now that he had broken my heart into pieces, he suddenly turned around to discover that he loved me. Who would be willing to accept a love that came so late? I pulled my hand back and sat before the bronze mirror, slowly removing my jewelry. My expression was calm. You should return to your study. Following that, the court was in constant turmoil. The struggle between the second and third princes became incredibly fierce, as they had essentially torn off their masks after the banquet. The second prince's guard committed suicide, and while the emperor didn't investigate further, noble consort Chen lost her favor. The two princes attacked each other with endless schemes. Julian began to struggle just to protect himself. Just like that, 2 years passed in a flash. In the beginning of the third year of my marriage into the Jiang family, the plague finally broke out in the capital. Just like in my past life, the court ordered the Imperial Medical Bureau to research a cure, but they only produced that same inadequate remedy. If things followed the old path, countless people would die, and countless mothers would be left heartbroken. Therefore, since the moment I was reborn, I had been working with Dr. Helen Tan to study the plague. We had tested many formulas and finally developed a superior remedy. As soon as the epidemic began, we administered this medicine to patients and discovered its miraculous effects. Most importantly, the ingredients were not rare, even commoners could afford them. To save as many as possible, I had stockpiled medicinal herbs early on just in case. For this, I actually had to thank Julian. He had given me a substantial dowry, which gave me the financial power to do this. Thus, as the plague spread, I remained calm. I presented the formula and the supplies to the court, saving countless lives in an instant. The epidemic was quickly brought under control, and the tragedies of my past life did not repeat. The people were incredibly grateful to me, secretly calling me the Bodhisattva of mercy. Even Luna, when she saw me while I was distributing medicine, bowed to me from a distance. I let out a soft sigh and nodded. Afterward, His Majesty summoned me to the Golden Throne Room to reward my merits. Madam Jiang, whatever request you have, speak it. I shall grant it. At that moment, Lord Jiang knelt to the side, looking at me with excitement. He likely thought this was a great glory for the family. Did he think I would ask for an official position for Julian? How ridiculous. Only Julian, his eyes bloodshot, looked at me as if he already understood what was about to happen. I gave him a fleeting light glance, then knelt respectfully and kowtowed. Your Majesty, I was born of humble origin, possessing neither talent nor beauty. I have been married into the Jang family for 3 years without producing an heir. I dare not continue to delay Lord Jiang from finding a better wife. I humbly beg your Majesty to preside over a divorce for us, so that from now on, we may each go our separate ways, unrelated forever. As soon as these words were uttered, the court erupted in murmurs. Amidst the whispering of the officials, Julian's eyes turned red, and a single tear of regret slid down his cheek. Lord Jiang turned pale with shock, and Madame Jang even fainted on the spot. The emperor was stunned, stroking his beard in hesitation. I intended to reward you and the Jiang family. I did not expect such a request. In everyone's mind, it was better to destroy 10 temples than to break 1 marriage. But for me to say this in such a public setting meant there was no longer a shred of affection left between Julian and me. The emperor paused for a moment, glancing at the empress. I had heard that the empress's great-grandson had been treated by the imperial physicians without success, but recovered after using my remedy. Because of this, the empress held me in high regard. She gave a soft smile and said, Your Majesty, Madame Chen has a great talent for medicine. If she is hidden away in an inner courtyard, just to fulfill the duties of a wife, her talent would be wasted. Why not grant her wish and let her join the Imperial Medical Bureau? In the future, could she not bring even more blessings to the people? The emperor nodded slowly. The empress is right. He then issued the decree. I grant the divorce. Julian's face was ashen, his whole body trembling as if he would shatter at a single touch. On the day I left the Jiang residence, I took nothing with me. I will not touch a single cent of your family's property. The money I used previously was for medicine. Consider it a way to accumulate merit for your household. Nina's spirit in heaven must be smiling down at me now. Julian stared at me, his voice desolate. Why did it have to come to this? From the very beginning, you never intended to reconcile with me, did you? I gave a cold laugh. Those words have no meaning now. You and I are now divorced by imperial decree. From this day forward, I have no relation to the Jiang family. Julian's eyes were bloodshot as he roared. For these 3 years, I gave you my whole heart. I've done my absolute best to make up for what I owed you. Could you really not feel a single bit of it? What exactly was he so aggrieved about? What he was suffering now wasn't even a 10,000th of what I had suffered in my past life. I should have torn him into 1,000 pieces. But at this moment, I had completely let it go. I looked at the bustling capital and the smiling faces of the people. I had things to do that were far more meaningful than revenge. Lord Jiang, not every crack can be mended. A broken mirror joined back together is only a story for the stage. After I became an imperial physician, Dr. Helen also became famous far and wide. The two of us worked side by side, bringing healing to many. After my divorce from Julian, the struggle between the second and third princes continued, growing more intense by the day. It was a pity that, in the end, neither inherited the throne. His Majesty saw through the true faces of those princes and chose the 9th prince, who was honest, virtuous, and filial, to be the crown prince. When the 9th prince ascended the throne, the supporters of the other 2 princes scattered like falling leaves. Some were demoted, others exiled. The Jiang and Song families had plotted so much, only for it to end in empty joy. Before being demoted to the southwest region, Julian specifically came to see me one last time. Sophie, please take care of yourself. I don't know if we will ever have the chance to meet again. I slightly curled my lips. You are the one who should take care. I hear the southwest is still untamed, filled with poisonous mists and dangers at every turn. Of course, if he died there, I wouldn't feel sad. As Julian walked away, looking like a man who had lost his soul, I suddenly realized something. If he had the memories of the past life, why did he still end up like this? Clearly, he didn't know the ultimate fate of the second prince. This meant that after Nina and I died in the previous life, Julian must have been gone soon after. Could the truth be, as he said, that after seeing our cold bodies, he had taken his own life, or perhaps something else had happened? But it could never be known now. I thought for a moment and then stopped caring. No matter what the truth was, it had long since ceased to have anything to do with me. This story teaches us a brutal, but necessary truth: forgiveness is a choice, not an obligation. Julian's belated regret proves that apologies, no matter how sincere, cannot resurrect a dead heart or undo the tragedy of neglect. You cannot shatter a mirror and expect it to be whole again, just because you are finally ready to look at your reflection. Sophie shows us that true strength isn't about enduring pain for the sake of virtue, but knowing when to walk away. Sometimes, the greatest act of self-love is realizing that some people simply do not deserve a second chance. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share Raccoon Tale to help more stories come to life. See you in the next tale.